North Carolina is riding a 5-game winning streak and things are rolling. What's helping out? We're going to ask Coach Rob.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Friday, January 12th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, joined by our guy, Coach Bill Robinson, the head coach of the Milligan University Buffaloes. So great to have him here as we do every week. We want to thank you, everydayers in particular, for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or watch to get your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. If you're new to the show and not an everydayer, welcome in. We're so glad you're here. We'd love to have you come join the Locked On Tar Heels Discord chat where we're hanging out all the time. Literally hundreds of messages going off during the NC State game on Wednesday night. The link for that's in the show notes. We'd love to have you. Coming up on the show today, we're going to get ready for the Syracuse game on Saturday. It is a new look Orange team with no Jim Boeheim. Spoiler alert, no zone anymore. So, Coach, we'll talk about that and a bunch of other things. But where we want to go first is that in the space since you and I have last chatted, North Carolina has now won at Clemson and won at NC State to wrap up this 3-game road stretch in which they have won 3 straight quad 1 wins. And so, Coach, just want to get your thoughts and what you've seen, what you think has helped Carolina continue to find success. Meanwhile, teams all around them in the nation are just dropping like flies on the road at other ranked and unranked schools. Why is Carolina able to win when others aren't?
Yeah, I think it just shows their toughness right now, especially the defensive end. When you have Harrison Ingram can guard multiple positions, the guards have really done a good job of being able to limit dribble penetration. And then, Armando's done a really good job inside, just being big and doing what he does. So I think the toughness at the defensive end, rebounding, limiting their turnovers, allows them to win those tough road games. It's just, if you look, we'll talk about Syracuse here in a little bit. It's just really hard to win on the road, and especially win on the road in conference. So yes. We've got to really make a big deal about these last 2 games.
Yeah, well, let's do that. So, Coach, because it's not even just that Carolina is winning on the road. They've won all 3 of these games at Pitt, at Clemson, at State. All have been by double digits. So, yeah. What is it that allows them to then? It's felt like particularly these last 2, as you just said, with Clemson and State, that it's like just kind of hanging out with this decently comfortable lead, 3, 4, or 5 points, and then they just trust the process and push it out to these double-digit advantages. How's that happening?
Yeah, I think Hubert talked about it the best way possible, because let's face it, we're on the outside. We don't know what's going on the inside. So when you get an insider to talk about these type of things, he talked about we've been there before, that the guys have talked about, hey, we've been here before. The confidence that they have now, it really is based on playing those really hard non-conference games. And I think it's prepared them for these conference games where they said, hey, we've been here before. There's no big deal. There's no panic. There's no stress. They're just sitting there going, hey, we're just waiting for everything to kick in. They went on that big 11-0 run in the second half, basically last night, just to finish things. And they're just waiting for that to happen. They're expecting that to happen. When you expect that to happen, team's really dangerous when they get to that point.
How does that expectation happen? Because I think left to their own devices, college basketball players, these young men who are 18 to 22 years old, would probably kind of give up, right? Like in the same way we saw State do on Wednesday night. It was clear and obvious. You could see it in their eyeballs that they were done. So, Coach, how does one put into practice that expectation that, like, no, we're going to do this?
Yeah, I think success breeds success. So when they have experienced some of those wins and are able to do that, it also comes down to the coaching staff. When you have a coaching staff, when the players come to a huddle and they look and there's no panic and there's positivity and nobody's yelling at anybody, there's no freaking out. Players sense that. They just sit there and relax. They know that everybody else is relaxed. That's a wonderful state to get to. It's hard to get there. That's not something that every team gets to. Sometimes teams never get to that during a season. But I think that has Armando alluded to that in his post game. Just you come to the bench and everybody's positive. The coaches are positive. The bench has been great. Even the guys who don't play a whole lot. Zayden High has been unbelievable on the bench, just cheering and yelling, and he's not letting his minutes dictate his enthusiasm on the bench. That's huge, and that's golden, and that's why those guys are so valuable, whether their stats show it or not.
Yeah, he's got that Theo Pinson energy over there, Coach. I love it. And something you said about that expectation of success, starting with the coaching staff. For me, what's cool is you can trace a through line for Coach Davis back to Coach Smith, who would always like come into the huddle, bring that level of confidence, and say, "Boys, we are going to win this basketball." Like when your head coach does that, I would run through a brick wall for that man. And so when Coach Davis says, "Hey, look, trust the process. We are a better basketball team. Don't get frazzled. Just let it keep happening." Then that it's going to. So, Coach, we are, it's Friday. We're a little under 48 hours removed from the win at NC State. What in particular in that game stood out to you? I mean, because if you told me coming into the game that Armando Bacot's going to sit the last almost 6 minutes of the first half, pick up a third foul early in the second and miss a bunch of the second, I would be severely concerned about DJ Burns just going off or something like that. Carolina was able to mitigate him. What about that and other things really specifically led to this Carolina victory in your eyes?
I think one of the great things right now is they're winning ugly. And as a coach, I don't really care. Ugly, pretty, doesn't matter. If you win a game, especially on the road in conference, it doesn't really matter. But to see them be able to, even RJ, 16 points under his average. Other guys stepped up. See Elliot step up. Harrison Ingram, how valuable has he been to
yes.
We were on the road last night, so I didn't get a chance to see anything until this morning. And I got a text from my son last night during our road trip back, and he just said Harrison Ingram is playing angry. And I said, "Oh, I love that. I love that. just to know that intensity and that fire." And let's be honest, he just wants to win. He's gone through his couple years at Stanford and great program, but they just didn't win at this level. And he just wants to win, and he'll do whatever it takes. It doesn't matter. He doesn't care if he scores. He just wants to. He's doing all the little things, all the dirty things, all the ugly things right now to help them win. So I think those are the big things. To see Elliot kind of break out a little bit last night and score double figures, but also to see Harrison and we can't talk enough about Seth Trimble right now either. His role is increased, and he's been playing great, and I love it. So those are the little things to me that we don't need Armando to have 20 and 10 every night. That other people can step up.
Yeah, that balance, Coach, not even just offensive, like from a scoring standpoint, but just knowing that anybody can affect the game in multiple ways. I talked about this on Thursday's show, but how important it is that Carolina is finally getting some role definition where everyone not only knows and understands, but accepts and kind of revels in what their role is. That's what makes teams successful, having just a group that's all in for the team with that. And now consequently, Coach, you see the Tar Heels at the top of the nation. As of Thursday's net rankings, there were only 8 teams in the nation with 4 or more quad 1 wins. Purdue has 6. Carolina, Arizona, and UConn have 5. And then FAU, Houston, Villanova, and Wisconsin all have 4. And so you've launched yourself, if you're Carolina now, into this territory where we're not just talking about making the tournament or not like we were last year. Now we're talking about what's the ceiling here? How high of a seed can Carolina get? And I know we're about to talk Syracuse specifically, but as you even project further out than that, thinking ahead to the next several games, Carolina has an opportunity to where it's not a bunch of quad 1 games in a row right now, but that might even be a tougher challenge, Coach. So can you just say a quick word on how, after you come off of this stretch of 3 road games, 3 quad 1 games, now you got to find a new motivation as you play teams that on paper might not be as tough a challenge?
Yeah, I think it's just that confidence that they've built up now, that they just feel like they can win, and they expect to win every game. Part of it is having Carolina on your chest and just knowing that you're a Tar Heel, and that tradition, like you just talked about with Dean Smith and Roy Williams, and now into Hubert's era. You just expect to win. Once you get to that and you get that feeling that you're never going to lose, that's something that only the elite teams get to.
Mm.
We talked a couple weeks ago about, can they sneak into the top 10 at some point and maybe be a 2 or 3 seed? I mean, I'm thinking now that when you start that snowball effect and the confidence starts to grow, there's no reason to think that we couldn't be a top team in the country and be a number 1 seed come tournament time. So, but there's a lot of games to go and a lot of things to do before that. But that's the type of confidence that they have. And if I'm an opposing coach and I hear Armando in a post game interview say, "Hey, we just have this confidence and we feel like we're going to win every game," I'd be terrified, because I know that grows internally, and then everybody believes. And once you believe, you'll do anything you can to win that ball game.
That's right. And it's not a misplaced confidence. Don't hear that wrong. Like, it is an appropriate level of confidence. And I'm right with you. Well, Coach, if the Tar Heels do want to get that top seed, it's, as you said, a lot more games, 16 more regular season games plus the ACC tournament. But that starts with Syracuse on Saturday, 1 game at a time. We're going to get you ready for that with our Four Corners preview coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode of Locked On Tar Heels is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, the NFL regular season just wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action with America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is very easy to use, and there's a bunch of different ways to bet, like same game parlays. They have a new Explore tab that can help you find all sorts of bets. Or how about the ACC regular season odds? Carolina has exploded into the lead now and is favored even far out away from Duke. So hopefully you would got in on that before now if you'd been listening. But if not, go ahead, get those Tar Heels as your ACC favorite. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, folks, we're going to get to our Four Corners recap. I need to quickly, though, answer a couple questions that came in on Wednesday's live post-game reaction to Carolina's victory. And these are actually both from King Asia Math. He asked, or she asked, I'm not sure, I'm assuming he, since it's King, last time Carolina ran the table in ACC play. So last time Carolina went undefeated in ACC play was 1986-87. Coach, I was like 3 at that point in the game. Carolina was 14-0 in ACC play, 32-4 overall. They were a 1 seed and then lost to, interestingly enough, Syracuse by 4 in the Elite 8. So here we are decades later. We're going to give them payback for that game on Saturday. King Asia asked the other question. When was the last time UNC scored 100 points on Duke? That was Tyler Hansborough's senior year, the national championship season, February 11th, 2009. Carolina won at Cameron, 101-87. The Tar Heels were ranked 3 and Duke 6. How about this, Coach? All 5 starters had at least 14 points, led by Ty Lawson's 25. I think you would be very pleased if you looked down at your box score and you saw your starters had all done that.
Definitely.
All right, folks, let's get into the Four Corners preview. Coach, we're going to let you take it first. And I know you just talked about Armando talking about confidence, but I think you got some more to say on that.
Yeah, I just think right now at home, when you win big games on the road, it just gives you even more confidence at home. You want to show out for your fans, for your family, for your guys, for your team. And I think the energy on Saturday should be just through the dome, through the roof. It should
the ceiling
be
is the roof, I think.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. It's one of those games that now that the guys have kind of got the momentum going on the road, fans are going to show out. They're going to be excited about it, and it's one of those where I hope they can come out and really put it on them early. Syracuse has not won on the road in conference yet, but they've only played 2 games. One of them was at Duke. This is a 2-point game at halftime. It was 35-33, so it's not like they're horrible on the road, but you have to go take it from them. The more that they get to hang around, just like any game, the more they hang around, maybe the more confidence they have. So I really feel like that first 5-10 minutes is going to be huge on Saturday.
That's a good word, Coach. And we talked about it in that first segment on how good a job Carolina is doing at putting the pedal to the metal and putting teams away. Need to do that again. Don't let, and all due respect to Syracuse, but don't let an inferior team hang around and get that confidence. We need the Carolina confidence. We got to steal Syracuse's confidence. Four Corners preview point number 2. This is going to be a big backcourt test for the Tar Heels. Judah Mintz and JJ Starling are dudes. They individually are dudes, and they're a great backcourt duo. Judah Mintz is a sophomore that was at Syracuse last year, came back. JJ Starling was at Notre Dame last year, transferred over. He was one of the first transfers I remember announcing their commitment last year. He announced for Syracuse very quickly. So for RJ Davis, for Elliot Cadeau, for Seth Trimble, when he comes in, this is going to be a tough test. They're a little bit bigger guards. Mintz is 6'2", Starling is 6'4". Mintz is the leading scorer on this team, like 18.5 a game. He is more the three-point shooter of the two. Starling, not much. So, like, sag off him a little bit if you need to, whatever it is. But I'm really curious to see, Coach, how our backcourt, Carolina's backcourt, can hold up against this Mintz-Starling duo.
I think Mintz is just so explosive. And this could be a game where you see, Trimble play more minutes, just because I think his athleticism can stay with Mintz. But he's explosive. You may even see, at some point, maybe you could see maybe going a little bit bigger and maybe see Manek try to
I wondered about that.
Play a little bit of guard stuff too. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they do it. But Cadeau has done such a great job, even against bigger guards. He's such a tough, and he doesn't look tough. It doesn't look like he's playing hard, but he really is. And he's a tough kid. And it's a great matchup, which should be really fun to watch.
Man, I'm excited for it. All right, Coach, what is our Four Corners preview point number 3?
I think the big thing for me has been Seth Trimble and the roles that they have. I have a couple different social media groups Carolina groups that I'm part of, and everybody says, "Oh, Seth needs to start. He needs to start." I think the roles that they have right now are perfect.
That's correct.
And Seth accepted his role, and he loves that role, and he's really adapted to it very, very well. So if it's not broke, don't fix it. We've talked about that multiple times. But the roles of everybody's kind of really just kind of slid into being comfortable and being confident. We talked about the confidence too. The really cool thing I thought from the press conference last night was talking about Jalen Washington as the best post defender. I thought that was out of Hubert's mouth, and I thought, boy, that's really cool too, to have really two of your best defenders are guys coming off the bench. Usually you think about maybe Vinny Johnson, microwave, somebody coming off scoring a lot of points off the bench, but to have two of your best defenders coming off the bench, maybe that's why the defense has been so good these last few games. There's no drop off when the bench guys come in. So the roles, I think, has been a huge impact for Carolina right now.
Man, that's so true. I mean, because you get the bench guys coming in and you think, oh, good, we can let off a little bit. Things are going to be easier for us. And here comes two of your best individual defenders, one in the front court, one in the back court, and your life just got worse. So, Coach, I love that. That's a great point. And it feeds right into Four Corners preview point number 4. I want to know just how good this Carolina defense can be. Can this be a 6th straight game holding an opponent under 70 points? Can it be a 4th straight game holding the opponent under 60? Coach, it's ridiculous what Carolina is doing. Can they continue to hold down their opponents from the 3-point line? I know Coach Keats was not keen on giving Carolina much credit after the win. We went in on him a little bit on yesterday's show, and I don't mind doing so again. He can catch some strays on this podcast anytime. But, Coach, Syracuse is not a good 3-point shooting team. 31% on the season, 263rd in the nation. So Carolina needs to continue to hold them down and have I think I said on yesterday's show, the combination of Pitt, Clemson, and NC State shot like 11% from 3. Carolina needs to keep doing that. And Syracuse, rates as a much stronger defensive than offensive team in general. And so there's no reason that Carolina can't just keep coming at them in waves, not only the starters, but as you just said, off the bench. So 4th thing is, how good can Carolina's defense, which is currently 8th in defensive efficiency at KenPom, continue to be? All right. Go ahead, Coach. I'm sorry.
Oh, I coached against Coach Keats at Wilmington when he was there. So I don't have anything too bad to say about him. I'm glad to see him lose last night. The 3-point percentage went from 35 to 31 in 4 games, 8 for 68. And I mean, so that 11% dropped the team defensive 3-point percentage from 35% to 31% in 4 games. So to me, that was a huge stat too. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're great. I love you interrupting and reminding us all that even when we see guys from the outside and get frustrated, really they are good people. I just wish Coach Keats would stay off the court and not try to run into RJ as he's flying by. All right, Coach. We want to get to know Syracuse and their new head coach a little better. What does it mean to face Syracuse now and not see a zone? What? We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode of Locked On Tar Heels is brought to you by Gametime. Hey, one of your New Year's resolutions should be to go check out all the best sporting events and theater and concerts, comedy around you. Thankfully, there's an app, and it's called Gametime, the fast and easy way to help you get great last-minute tickets for all of these events. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat feature, and a best price guarantee. With all of that, Gametime has exactly what you need. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event, and thankfully, Gametime has you covered. They've got deals on tickets right up to start of the event, and even while it's going on, you can still buy tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Coach Bill Robinson, Isaac Schade here with you, hanging out on a Friday, getting ready to run into the weekend. We've actually got a couple listener questions for Coach we're going to get to in a minute, as well as Coach has a cool thing he wants to tell us about that's happening. But before we do that, we need to talk about Carolina and Syracuse tomorrow, Saturday, January 13th. It's at noon. Again, I love these noon tips. Coach, get up, watch it, and get on with my Saturday. ESPN, the FanDuel line is not up yet, but Ken Palm favors Carolina in this game, coached by 14 points. That's wild, but I think it says good things about what Carolina is doing. The all-time series record is Carolina leads 16-6. They've won 3 of the last 5 the Tar Heels have, but before that, there was a 9-game winning streak. Coach Davis has not yet lost to Syracuse. He's 2-0 in his young career. Now, as we all know, Coach Jim Boeheim has retired, and now Syracuse is led by Adrian "Red" Autry, who played at Syracuse from 90 to 94. He had been an assistant at Syracuse since 2011. Coach, do you remember watching Coach Autry much as a player?
I do. It was right after I got out of college, and he was a very good player. And those were really good teams back then. Those teams right before him with Pearl Washington, I actually was in school in New York, so we heard a lot about them at that time. And that was the old Big East. And boy, that was some great basketball. That was really when basketball started to really go over in my heart. Just loved it.
That's good. Love it. Well, so love to see this. It's going to be weird not to see Jim Boeheim on the sideline. Syracuse right now is not ranked. They're 74th at Ken Palm, 73rd in the net. So that means this is going to be a quad 2 game, but just barely. 75 is the cutoff for a quad 2 game at home, which of course, by winning, that might mean that Carolina knocks Syracuse out of the top 75 and turns it into a quad 3 game. Welcome to the net system where it's always in flux. Syracuse was picked 10th in the ACC preseason media poll. So far, they are 11-4 overall. Their best wins, they beat Oregon on a neutral. That's their lone quad 1 game. And then they've beaten LSU, and they beat Pitt and BC at home. Every other game they've won is outside the top 100. In terms of losses, Coach mentioned they haven't won yet on the road in ACC play. They lost to both Virginia and Duke. Virginia is a completely different team at home versus on the road this year so far. My goodness, Coach, that's wild. And then they also also lost to Tennessee and Gonzaga in the Maui Invitational. But these are all good losses, quote unquote, good losses. Just like Carolina, all their losses are quad 1. But Coach, here's the thing. None of their 4 losses have been close. They have lost by 17, 19, 22, and 20. What does that tell you about like a kind of dichotomy about what Syracuse is doing or not doing when they lose?
Yeah, I think the Tennessee game is a little bit misleading. They've battled and fought in that game. I actually got to watch all of that game. Obviously, being in East Tennessee, we see a lot of Tennessee games, and of course, they're loaded right now and playing pretty well. But I think some of those losses, they just kind of, towards the end of the game, just kind of ran out of gas. But it does tell you that they're not competing and maybe at the highest level. You get down 10 late, you have that fortitude, that intestinal fortitude to really go after somebody and try to compete, really try to, make it a game. And they just haven't been able to do that. So I think it is a little alarming. I'd be a little nervous as a coach to know that those games weren't very close. But it's, again, some of them are a little misleading. That Tennessee game for sure was.
Okay, so maybe another example of Carolina being able to get a lead and then just kind of crush their soul, and Syracuse is done, especially on the road. So we'll be watching for that. In terms of players to watch, we already talked about Mintz and Starling. They're both sophomores. In fact, Syracuse is basically all sophomores. Everyone that contributes just about is a sophomore. So they're a young team, but they do have some talent. Neither, by the way, I didn't mention this, but neither Mintz or Starling is a particularly great free throw shooter, although Mintz gets there a ton, like 8.5 attempts from the free throw line a game. The two other scorers in double figures for Syracuse, Chris Bell, a 6'7" forward, sophomore, is averaging 10.9 points, and Malik Brown, who comes off the bench, a 6'8" sophomore forward, is averaging 10.3. The typical starters are Mintz and Starling and Chris Bell, along with Naheem McLeod, who, get ready for this one, it's like a Florida State player, 7'4". And then the other usual starter is Justin Taylor, another sophomore. I'm telling you, they're all sophomores, a 6'6" guard. And so we got to imagine that, Cormac Ryan will be hanging out with him. And good luck to Armando against Naheem McLeod. That'll be interesting. Now, Judah Mintz didn't start Syracuse's last game because of a team infraction, but Coach Autry has already said that he'll be back starting on Saturday. So, Coach, for people who are used to seeing, all right, it's Syracuse 2-3 zone. Let's get to the, get to the middle and operate from there. It's not that anymore. So how do people need to retrain their brains for a new look Syracuse?
Yeah, I actually think it might be an advantage now for a team. They don't have to go through that 2 or 3 day process of preparing for the zone. They don't see it very often for anybody else. So it would literally stop your normal practice plan and for 2 or 3 or for a week trying to prepare for something that's completely different. So to me, I think it's actually an advantage. You don't have to prepare it's just business as usual. Go through your normal routine, nothing really outside. You run your man stuff in practice all the time anyway. It doesn't really change anything. So it's going to be as a fan, it doesn't really matter. You're sitting there going, okay, let's just watch the game. But from a coaching perspective, it's kind of nice. I don't have to, divert from the plan. We can just stay on the course.
It's kind of a bummer. I'm going to miss yelling, "Get to the high post" at my TV the whole game. So that'll be fun. Cool. Coach, thanks for setting that up. All right. So Carolina, Syracuse coming up on Saturday. Coach, I think we're both going to have the Tar Heels winning this game. The question is, how do they look? How do they respond coming back home? As you said, we're really curious to see that. Now, Coach, you have a neat thing that's going on for Milligan that you wanted to share with us. Would you let us in on that?
Yeah, Milligan's got great tradition, great basketball tradition, and two of the legendary players from Milligan's days were Sonny Smith and Del Harris. Sonny Smith went on to coach at Auburn and was the head coach for a guy by the name of Charles Barkley. And Del Harris, of course, went on and coached the Bucks, the Rockets, and the Lakers, and coached Shaq and Kobe, and longtime assistant coach in the NBA. And they're going to dedicate the floor to those guys. It's going to be called the Smith Harris Court at Steve Lacy Fieldhouse here on Milligan's campus. So I know Del for sure is coming. Sonny is to be announced. He's still doing radio for the Auburn game, so it just depends on whether he can get up here or not. But we're really excited about having that ceremony Saturday. It'll be in between the girls and guys game, about 3:30. And if anybody's in the area here in East Tennessee, would love to come out and see Naismith Hall of Famer Del Harris, who was in the original Space Jam and just an unbelievable guy. He'll get a chance to speak a little bit and talk about Milligan. But I've gone to 2 Hall of Fame ceremonies for him. One was kind of a Lifetime Achievement Award, and then the actual Naismith Hall of Fame ceremony. And in his speeches for both of those, he mentioned his time at Milligan. So I know it's a big part of his heart, and he's a big part of our basketball tradition. And we're super excited to have him here this weekend.
Man, that's so cool, Coach. Thanks for sharing that with us. I myself had the opportunity to meet Coach Harris at his Hall of Fame kind of press conference that they had at the Final Four a couple years ago and share that Milligan love together. And so it's just neat to see the Milligan basketball tradition going on. That's great. All right, folks, I said we had a couple questions for Coach Rob that came from Discord, but we're running long on time today. So, Coach, I'm actually going to put those in our back pocket, and let's get around to those when we chat next week, because they're kind of evergreen questions that we can cycle back around to. So thank you all for submitting those, and Coach, we'll get to those next week. All right, folks, big game Saturday. Tar Heels looking for a 6th straight win and going at 5-0 in the ACC. Hard to believe, but that is the reality of where we're at. I hope that you have a great weekend. I'll come to you with a live reaction show right after the game on Saturday. Would love to have you hop in on that, folks. Make sure you stay tuned in to see when that will be. If you want to know and get in on deeper level conversation, come join us in the Discord. Again, the link for that is in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe. We are almost to 7,000 YouTube subscribers, like 30 away. It's wild to see, and it's all because of all of you. Thank you. Also, smash the like button, and it would mean a lot if you would leave a rating, a review of the show, 5 stars, talk about why you love Locked On Tar Heels. Y'all, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Can't wait to talk again after the game tomorrow, but until then, peace.